Hello, welcome to Context Conversations. I'm Eric Noll, CEO of Context. Thank you for joining us again today. Today, we are very pleased to have Abdel Missa, who is the CEO and founder of MarketCipher Partners. Abdel, as many of you may know, spent 17 years at Deutsche Bank, where he managed a multi-billion-dollar portfolio and had a 17-person team reporting to him. And so we're really pleased today to talk to Abdel about what he's doing now and what MarketCipher is. So thank you for joining us, Abdel.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start with, where do you come from? How did you get in this business? What attracts you to this space?
Yeah, so my background is I was an engineer. I worked in Silicon Valley, and after business school, I joined Deutsche Bank on the long-short proprietary desk, but I worked on the fundamental side. Okay, so that's the interesting part. Is I had a quantitative background before, but I got to learn the fundamental side, and it became evident to me that it makes sense to create an investment strategy that combines the two worlds rather than just looking at it from a discretionary perspective or quantitative. Merging these two philosophies was the best way to go.
Great. So describe what makes the MarketCipher strategy unique.
Okay, so the first thing I would say is we have something called smart data instead of big data. Everybody's going the big data route. We're like, no, you know what? We're gonna be a contrarian and do something different. So what is this smart data? Okay, so we look at everything that has an impact on equity markets. Okay, anything that makes equity market moves, we want to know. And so what do I mean by that? Valuation, sentiment, positioning, flows. And so we have over 300 smart data indicators that assess the health of the equity market. And then so for an indicator to make it to smart data, it has to have two properties. One is common sense, okay? I don't know if you have ever heard about this. Production of butter in Bangladesh is highly correlated with the S&P. And so a quant might say, well, this is very important indicator. For us, it's like, no, it will not make it, right? So it has to make sense and it has to be statistically significant. And then once we have these indicators, we aggregate them through artificial intelligence algorithm to assess what is the risk reward in real time for the market.
So many of our investors and allocators, one of the things that they care most about is, what is your edge? What drives your investment strategy differently than someone else's that brings you the edge? And it sounds to me like smart data and the way you apply that smart data is part of that. Is there anything you want to add to that? Any other factors that you consider that help you deliver edge?
Absolutely. Okay, so I would say two things. One is the real-time quantification of risk reward. Okay, so let me give you an example. You ask a trader, what do you think about the market, right? And then they have a lot of experience, and in their head, they process a lot of the information and they say, okay, I'm bullish, right? But in reality, the number of things that they have processed is limited. So it's like if you go to a few of your neighbors and you ask, hey, who is going to win the presidential election? And then they tell you, okay, here is who we think. And then you're like, I know who the president is going to be. So you have a small data sample. It's a problem, okay? And so for us, we look into everything and we come up at the end with, for different regimes, what is the risk reward at real time? The second edge, I would say, is our risk management. So we have something, we just had the Super Bowl, we have something actually called MarketCipher Cover 5. Okay, so we have 5 pillars for risk management that we use to be tight on risk under different regimes.
Fantastic. So timing is usually everything. And so many of our investors today are looking at all kinds of different kinds of investment opportunities in the marketplace. It's obviously we've come through an unusual time in the world and in the markets in general. Why now? Why would an investor want to consider your strategy today?
Okay, that's a great question. I will say two things. Okay, so number one is we have been consistently making money. Okay, so now we have a 3-year track record. If you recall 2018, Q1 2018 and Q4 2018, the market sold off a lot, and then we made money in 2018. 94% of assets lost money. We made money in 2019, and then 2020 as well, okay? And so the goal of our strategy is to make high single-digit returns while still lower risk, okay, both idiosyncratic risk and systematic, okay? So our volatility is lower than equity markets or CTAs in general or global macro, but at the same time, we try to be uncorrelated, okay? So I will say that's the main thing here.
So you led to a really interesting point that another area that our investors and allocators care a lot about is, the correlation, or I should say the lack of correlation to the S&P 500 or US equity markets. Talk to me a little bit about, is that an output of your strategy, or is that as a goal of your strategy? Is it a side effect? And has that been helpful to you as you look to raise money and work with allocators?
Yeah, so the first thing I will say, the way we look at it is people just in general look at the correlation versus the S&P. That's not how we look at it. When the S&P makes money, you want to be highly correlated, right? You want to show that you're making money, okay? And so the key is to be uncorrelated when the equity market lose money, okay? Because otherwise, you're not optimizing the entire risk-reward profile. And so for us, look, we're trying to manage the strategy for each regime. And so when the regime is positive, you want to be long the market, it's okay. But when the system, when we have built a really cool intellectual property and technology, when everything in the screen is red, we're certainly not going to be long. We will go potentially even short, and then we use options. Okay, so that's the idea. We want the correlation to be positive on the upside, but ideally negative on the downside.
Great, thank you. So, how do you find new investors? What drives people to what do you do, and what drives people to be attracted to you? What is your special sauce that you help you raise funds?
Well, so a few things. So obviously, first of all, I would say the partnership with Context and has been amazing for us. Okay, so we thank you for all the work you do, and so we appreciate the partnership. Two, we use obviously, like we came from Deutsche Bank, so we have relationship with capital introduction teams. And then the third thing we started last year is now we have been obviously embracing new technologies, and so we have been very active in social media. Okay, so and that's a very excellent source as well to generate business.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So any further thoughts, anything that you want to leave our community, particularly on the allocator side, about MarketCipher, about yourself, about your strategy, that you think is important for them to know?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch base on something that's very important to us, which is our culture and the social side, okay? And this is especially relevant with what's going on in the world right now. I mean, you see it with the GameStop saga and Main Street versus Wall Street, and how hedge fund managers are portrayed as evil, okay? And for me, having worked in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, our goal is really like to make, look, we can work in Wall Street and be good people, and we can work in Wall Street and then make a difference and positive impact in the world. And so that's really, really important for us. And let me give you some examples. So number one is I'm a professor at Jacksonville University, so I teach an investment class, okay? So we have over $800,000 investment portfolio that the students manage, and I help them do it, okay? So so that's one thing for me to contribute to the community. The second thing I have done last year is I have created a YouTube educational channel, okay? So it's called Abdel Missa Finance for All. And I talk about markets, I talk about a lot of things to educate people, because I feel like finance is something, okay, if you go, it's not necessarily taught everywhere, right? To me, it should be within the high school curriculum, because look, everybody has to manage their finances and budgets and retirements, yet we don't have the right education. And so I'm trying to bridge that gap, and that's why I'm offering the YouTube channel. And then the third thing, this is something that has happened this year, which is really, really cool. I'm very excited about this. So I was working with my high school son on the quadratic equation, right? And then I came up with a method to solve this in an easy way. Okay? Normally, quadratic equations are algebra 1, algebra 2. In high school now, my new method, an 11-year-old can solve the quadratic equation. And so with that, like last year, it was cool, like on the side, on the weekend, we created, me and my partner, some pretty cool math to solve even higher polynomial equations, and we're publishing some work right now, which is very cool. And so these are ways for us to look, like, again, like we want to help people. It's okay to be in Wall Street, but still make a difference in the world.
Couldn't agree with you more about that. And by the way, you don't look particularly evil, so I think
Oh, yeah, you
I
don't
think
see like that.
I think you're in good shape. Keep up the good work with what you're doing. So thank you, Abdel, for telling us your story today and telling the story about MarketCipher and smart data and the value added to your strategy and the edge that you bring. Really appreciate it, and I know our listeners and viewers will as well. So thank you for joining us today, and thank everyone who's watching. Again, I'm Eric Noll, and this is Context Conversations. Thank you so much.